Hello, fellow artists. Welcome back to chapter 7. Today we'll be talking about human proportion and body landmarks. So, what are landmarks? Let's say you're on vacation in Paris, you got lost, you're on your phone with your friends, and you're like, dude, I'm right at this cafe. And your friend is like, what cafe? There's like a bazillion cafe in Paris. And you're like, oh, I'm at the cafe that is literally on the right of the Eiffel Tower. You guys find each other. Why? Because the Eiffel Tower is one of the most well-known landmarks. Landmarks are places or area that you can easily recognize and it doesn't really move much. So the landmarks on the human bodies are bones. Why do I choose bones? Because they don't really move much or they don't really change much in different body type. So if you know where the bones are, you can basically tackle any type of body figures. But for me personally in this class, we'll mostly focus on this type of body, which is on the more chunkier and curvier side of a human figure. But feel free to draw your body type however you want because these bony landmarks will stay the same for every body type. But before we talk about bony landmarks, let's talk about proportion. So with figure drawings or anatomy, we use head as the units because if you like that's the first thing you draw, right? It's the head, the figure. Then we'll use that if by calculating the height of your head and you're basically this is how I would do it. And this is more on lecture. Like the more you'll do this, the more you draw, the more muscle memory you build, and you don't have to draw these indicator lines or the height lines. The we're basically using head as height indicators or proportion or units. So first, all you need to do is to make a copy of your head, right? Put it on the side, on the left, on the right. Really depends on you. And then use a different color because it's a little bit confusing, right? And you just make copy of that head. You move down. You have another head. And remember to have the tip of your head, like the bottom of the first head touching the tip of the second head, right? And that intersection will make a line. These are height indicators. So for at least the figure I'm drawing right now, her height is a total of 6 head and a little bit more. We have 5, 6. And when I say a little bit more is it's like 6.5-ish. Pushing it, call it like 6.5-ish. But it's a little bit shorter than 6.5 heads. So by knowing these, when I move on to body landmarks, I'll use these heads or head 1, head 2, head 3, head 4 as the height indicator. Merge all together. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bit more. Yeah. So first thing first, before everything, draw the head out, and then the first body landmarks is It's always easier to start in the middle, outward, from top to bottom. And the first body landmarks is right here at this little dip. It's right here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, have symmetrical tools. So the first one is right here. You can either use this. I would just do it at like do it like laying down a dot, right? So the first one is right here. It is at the pit of your neck, a little indentation in between your clavicle. Really easier way to distinguish or to know where it is you get your finger. Put your finger at the middle of your chin and slowly drag it down and stay in the middle. And then when you go down, you'll feel a little bit of indentation, which is like it curves in. There's a empty space right in between your clavicle. And clavicles are these right in between. That is the first landmark. The second landmark is around right here. If you actually look at the bone or the skeletal of the human body, this part, like these two dots, is shaped like a tie, like a necktie. So if you want to use that mental image to remember what it looks like for the first and second landmark, that could help out. And for height wise, the first body landmark is located at around 1/3 of the next head. Right? So I'll make a little line outwards. Some rulers, special rulers or guides. Right here. If you look at it, it's at 1 and I would say 1/3, but pushing it a little bit. The second landmark is around 1 and 2/3, but pushing it a little bit. So just remember, it's around one head and you add a little bit more because you have the neck in the middle. And then the first landmark, it's right at 1 and a little bit. Right here. The distance between this and this is very insignificant. But remember, this space is the neck. And then after that, remember the second landmark is height wise. It'd be one head and almost really close to the next head. So it's at like the chin of the second head. Have a necktie right here. The next body landmarks, it's not a bony landmarks, but because I will mostly be using this type of body figure for our class, then this landmarks doesn't really change even though it's not a bony landmarks, but you don't have to use the same landmark as me if you're tackling other body type. But for this body type, which is a more curvier, more mature body type, this indicator doesn't really change, and the indicator or the landmark doesn't really change. This landmark is the belly button right here. And the belly button is conveniently located at half of the third head. A little bit at the half mark, a little bit higher than the half mark, third head. The next one, the next landmarks is the pubic bone. And the pubic bone is located right around here. It's very, very close to this area, but it's not really at that area. Usually there's like still fat and skin over that area. So the pubic bone is actually at right here. And if it's easier for you to remember, you can make it to a little upside down triangle to remember. Here. And it is located at around tip of the forehead. So actually, it's kind of like the tip of the second head too. It's the same length. And if you actually look at all of these forms right here, all of these lines are all of the landmarks in the middle of the human figure. It's the same-ish length. So I've used like, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points or dots or landmarks. And now I'll erase that part and I'll just do little dots. That's easy for you guys to know where things are. The length between these dots are basically the same ish, but they're basically the same, and it goes from a little bit down from the second head and it ends at a little bit down from the forehead right here, but the pubic area should be, that is the pubic area, but landmarks and right here like 1/4, 2, 3, 4. That's even that is pushing it. Around right here, around right here. Yeah, I would say 1/4. 1/4 of the second head and 1/4 of the fourth head here. But just remember these landmarks and their location. And after that, another landmark, like after we finish everything in the middle, this is the most easier way to do it. Starting from the middle and go outward. After that, we have the clavicle, which look like bicycle handles for some reason. But we have the clavicle. And it's usually stopped, like the point that it creates is usually at this point. The tip of your the tip of your shoulder. Bicycle handles right here. So these two are the next landmark. Now, the landmarks on the limbs, on the hands and feet, they're basically joints. So first we have the first landmark, right? The second landmark on the hand will be at the elbow joints. And the third one will be at the wrist joint here. And up the length between the tip of the shoulder landmark going down to the elbow joints is the same length as going down from the elbow joints to the wrist. And the length of the wrist is usually at this point. So say 1/4 and a little bit more down. One to determine where, like how long is the arm. And then the hand is usually at this area. Like 3/4 forehead. 3/4 of the forehead. Or length of the whole arm. Upper arm to the hand. Around this area. Pushing it a little bit. That area. One. Again, these calculations are not 100% accurate. It's kind of around that area. I'm just gonna use that term a lot from now on, like around that area, and it's at 3/4 of the forehead. So that would be the length of the arms. And now we have the feet. And the feet goes from right here. The landmarks. It's not really showing on like the human body. It's kind of hard to find that bone, but really easy indicators on how to start the feet and find the landmarks on the feet are right here. These bones, I believe they're called greater trochanter. This bone right here. And the leg bones, the bones on the legs, it's never straight down. Funny enough, it's kind of slanted. Area. So we have that landmark right here. We draw it downward. We meet at the knee. That's another landmark. And that landmark is conveniently at 3/4 of the fifth head. So 3/4 and 1/4 is there's a lot of repetition, right? 3/4 and 1/4, usually just like by one. Just remember, like, divide the head into 4 parts. Then it's either going to be like the first part of the head or the third. Like 1/4 of the head or third, 3/4 of the head. And starting at like how you start the limbs is usually at like the wrist part. And that is at 1/4 of the forehead. The next landmarks will be at this area, which is at the ankle. And it is conveniently at Again, 1/4 of the full head, but it's like 6 and a little bit more. They're right here. It's okay. It's okay if like you don't draw the whole like for the final units, you don't draw the whole head out, but I think it's just easier to know where it is. So have these lines, indicators, like height indicators. For using the head as units, it's a lot easier than centimeters or meters because like everybody's height is a little bit different, but proportion wise, using head is very dependable. Like the head is very dependable. It doesn't really change much for different body type. So now we have all the landmarks in front of the body. Let's look at the back of the body. Okay, now we move on to the back of human figure. Again, with determining landmarks, we start from the middle, from top to bottom, and then we go outward from there. So the first landmark is at right here. It is at the base of the cranial notch, or it is at the base of your skull. It's kind of hard to see it in the back, but when you look at the side, it's around this area. Side. And that would be around half of the first head, half of the top head. Then move downward. We have the second bones is around here. And again, these measurement, you don't have to follow me 100%, but just kind of remember like the distance or like the height between these two. It's always easier if you know one and you start from there and then you start building more from there. But it's also easier to remember how many heads. 6 head, the length is like 1 head and 1/4 of the second head or something like that. But you don't have to follow these measurement to a T though. It's more for you to discover yourself, but usually this is the proportion or the distance. So I wouldn't like make the neck all the way like this long, like half of the second head, but more like a little bit. It can be a little bit longer than 1/4, just by like a tiny like millimeters. So you don't have to follow these measurements, but stay close to it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to say. Stay close to it. The second one in the back is at the seventh vertebrae. It's like the base of your neck, I would say. Like a really easy way to figure or to find where it is you look down, you look at your feet, and then you get your hand, and then you feel around the neck area, like the base of the neck area. You feel that one bone that is sticking out, and it's really, really hard, and it's really easy to find it. That's the one. That's the second landmark, right? And then the third landmark is basically this whole spine. That's the whole third landmark. And the spines go all the way until, again, conveniently at 3/4 of the third skull or the third head. Right here. This area is actually called sacrum. It's kind of like when you draw characters that has animal characteristic like tails. I would reckon that's where you start. Like that's where the tail would start. So we have 1, 2, this whole line, the spine, and it ends right here. So you just need to remember this like arrowish shape. For the back, And again, this whole thing in at around 3/4 of the third head right here. 3/4 of the third head. Really easy. Like 1/4, 3/4. Easy to remember. And after that, we have these. We make. Oh, I know what I have now. So, there it is. Right there. Whenever you see your symmetrical tools or your symmetrical rulers, that's the color green. This means it's not active. Trying to find that little symbol that has like it's a circle with a slash in the middle. That means it's inactive. And if you want to turn it on, just click on it. And if it returns to the color like purplish like this, then it's active. You can use it. Hopefully. Hopefully you can use it. Yeah. And now we have the scapula. The scapula, which is this. Again, like the tip of your shoulders. Kind of like kind of reminds you of like the clavicle, right? But a little lower because the clavicle is like all the way up here. And this is at around ooh, ooh, around half of 2/4 of the head. You don't have to remember all of these measurements, but it's just easier to visualize what the head as a unit. But then usually for the scapula, you just need to remember this shape. I don't know, it's a shape like kidney or something. It's like it's really hard to put a name into this shape. Like like this whole thing, it is like triangular-ish shape, but it's more curved. Or however you want to call it. And that's like the scapula. And the end part of the scapula is again conveniently at 3/4 of the second head. Yeah, you don't have to remember this part right here. You just need to know this end part. Then in the back, remember this. You know how to draw the back, basically. Most of the back. Those are the very significant bones. Is really easy to recognize. And I would reckon like usually if you draw a character with wings or has wings, I would say it's usually coming from this bone right here. Yeah. The wing of the back. Just remember these points right here. The scapula. And then moving on to the limbs. Very, very similar to the front, so I won't talk about the measurement for the limbs. But again, one landmark at the elbow joints, one landmark at the wrist, one landmark the back of the knee, and one landmark at the ankle. Right here. Height-wise, very similar. And then I'll talk about proportion of like the bottom, like the butt, when we get to like more specific. But this is more just on landmarks. And if you remember these measurements, like just roughly remember it, I guess like from only by listening to this lecture wouldn't really help much. You listen to this lecture and then you draw out the body figure from your own and you measure out each head and you make your own calculation because then again, six head and a little bit more, six head and a half for body proportion is not like the ultimate proportion for anything at all. Like if the character has longer legs, I would add like six head and like six and 3/4